Hi, this is Mandy.
Hey, Mandy, we can hear you. For those
Okay,
of you in
great.
chambers and on Zoom, we are waiting for one more commissioner before we start the meeting. Thanks. Good evening. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning meeting for November 2nd, 2023. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order. The commissioners who are here are present for this evening's meeting are at City Hall and on Zoom. We also have staff from the city's attorney and city clerk's office, as well as the city planning department. If you're joining us on Zoom this evening, we can see that you are here. You may observe the meeting. However, your ability to be on screen and talk will be muted. During the public testimony meeting portion of the meeting, you will be unmuted and then be able to comment. Please note that we cannot take questions until the public testimony portion of the meeting. If you have a process question during the meeting, please email cityclerk@meridiancity.org and they will reply as quickly as possible. If you simply want to watch the meeting, we encourage you to watch this streaming on the city's YouTube channel. You can access it at meridiancity.org/live. With then, let's begin with roll call. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Lorcher. Commissioner Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Stoddard,
Here.
Commissioner Rivera,
Here.
and Commissioner Lorcher.
Here. Next up is the adoption of the agenda. There are no changes to the agenda tonight. Could I get the motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second to adopt the agenda. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is the consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda, which is to approve the meetings of the October 19th, 2023 Planning and Zoning meeting. Can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It has been
Second.
moved and second to accept the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I would briefly like to explain the public hearing process. We will open each item individually and begin with the staff report. Staff will report their findings on how the items adhere to our comprehensive plan and our unified development code. After staff has made their presentation, the applicant will come forward and present their case and respond to staff's comments. They will have 15 minutes to do so. After the applicant has finished, we will open the floor to the public testimony. Each person will be called only once during the public testimony. The clerk will call the names individually of those who have signed up on our website and in advance to testify. You will be then unmuted on Zoom, or you can come to the microphone in chambers. Please state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to address the commission. If you have previously sent pictures or a presentation for the meeting, it will be displayed on the screen and our clerk will run the presentation. If you have established that you are speaking on the behalf of an HOA or another group where others from that group will allow you to speak on their behalf, you will have up to 10 minutes. After all those who have signed up in advance have spoken, we will invite any others who wish to testify. If you wish to speak on a topic, you may come forward in chambers, or if on Zoom, press the raise hand button in the Zoom app. Or if you're listening by phone, please press *9 and wait for your name to be called. As a reminder, if you're listening on multiple devices such as a computer and a phone, please sure to mute those extra devices so we do not experience feedback and we can hear you clearly. When you have finished, the commission does not have questions for you. You will return to your seat in chambers or be muted on Zoom and no longer have the ability to speak. And please remember, we will not call on you a second time. After all the testimony has been heard, the applicant will be given another 10 minutes to come back and to respond. When the applicant has finished responding to questions and concerns, we will close the public hearing and the commissioners will have an opportunity to discuss and hopefully make a final decisions or recommendations to city council as needed. With that, I would like to open the first application for the public hearing, which is item H 2023-0045, annexation and preliminary plat for Farmstone Crossing subdivision for the sole purpose of continuing the public hearing for December 7th. Can I have a motion to continue the public hearing, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second to move the Farmstone Crossing subdivision file number H 2023-0045 for the hearing date of December 7th. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. I have some disclosure for the next two applications from, for the Tanner Creek subdivision and Hawkins. I have family members who live in the impact area of both of these projects. After consulting with the city attorney, I will recuse myself from the conversation for this evening's applications since that area impacts my overall family. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Jared, and he will lead these applications for these discussions.
Thank you, Commissioner Lorcher. Kurt, would you like to say any words about kind of how this?
Thank you, Chairman. So a couple of items before we open the public hearings this evening. First, just for the public's benefit and for the record, we started our meeting with 4 commissioners, which establishes a quorum for tonight. As we just heard, Vice Chair Lorcher is recusing herself for a conflict of interest reason, but is remaining in the building. She's just in the City Council conference room, and so quorum is maintained. So we'll proceed with 3 members casting votes or eligible to deliberate on these items, but we still maintain quorum. Is the first observation for the record. The second item is that we have, as I understand it, a request from the applicants for your next 2 public hearings. That's items 3 and 4 on your agenda this evening to open those public hearings concurrently and to hear those items concurrently. And the rationale for that is that they are very much integrally related to one another. And as you noted, I'm sure when you read the staff reports, the 2 projects really go sort of hand in glove in many ways. In addition, the City Council in earlier discussions had expressed an interest and desire for these projects to be dealt with at the same time. So that is a bit unorthodox. We don't typically do multiple public hearings at the same time. That's certainly not prohibited by in a legal manner. It's just a bit unorthodox. And so what I would like to ask is a representative for each applicant to come to the podium before we head down this path. I'd just like to have it on the record that the applicants are making this request and that they would prefer to proceed in this manner. So I'll invite our applicants up to confirm that on the record. And then we'll, if that is the case, I would ask the chairman to open both public hearings and we will proceed accordingly. I have one more announcement after that.
Becky McKay from Engineering Solutions, 1029 North Rosario Meridian Business Address. I'm representing Challenger Development for the Tanner Creek project. We do consent to the consolidation of our presentation and being heard when it's one integrated project.
I'm Ethan Mansfield with Hawkins Companies, representing the corner development there to the east of Tanner Creek, and we also consent to being heard together. Thank you.
I mean, one last announcement, and we'll turn to the hearings at hand, but that is that in order to be as fair as possible and provide due process to all involved, the applicant, the public, and others that have an interest in these topics, because we're doing essentially 2 public hearings concurrently, we will essentially double the allotted time for applicants to present, and then double the amount of time that we would typically provide to for citizen testimony. So by way of example, we would typically allow applicants 15 minutes initially to make their presentation. In this instance, we'll allow 30 minutes in total. They may or may not want to use that entire time, but we would make that available. And likewise, for those that want to provide testimony this evening, the public and other interested parties, we would typically provide 3 minutes for that purpose, but tonight we'll provide 6 because we're hearing both items concurrently, and so we have more material to cover. So with that as preface, I would turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman, to open both of the public hearings, and we can proceed with double staff reports initially. Sonia will discuss both projects back to back, and then we'll turn it over to the applicants.
Thank you, Kurt. So per applicant's request, we are going to open for public hearing item number H-2023-0099 annexation and future land use map amendment from Hawkins Company. Concurrently with item H-2023-0048 modification to the existing DA agreement rezone request, preliminary plat, and a conditional use permit for multifamily housing for Tanner Creek subdivision. I will begin with the staff reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a clarification for the record, this file number is H 2021-0099. It is an older file number that's been in the process for a little while, so just. wanted
Thank
to
you.
correct that. Thank you. The subject applications before you tonight are a request for a comprehensive plan map amendment and annexation. This project was heard by the commission on April 28th, 2022, and a recommendation of denial was sent forth to the city council. City council heard the application and remanded it back to the commission for the following reasons. Preference for this property and the abutting property to the west, Tanner Creek, to come in together or concurrently with the master plan for the overall area that demonstrates consistency with the existing or proposed future land use map designation. And that is mixed use community and mixed use regional. Desire for the transportation issues to be addressed before a development plan is approved, and desire for changes to be made to the concept plan to be more consistent with the general mixed use guidelines and specifically the requested mixed use regional designation. Some changes were made to the plan, but they were not substantive enough to be deemed consistent with the general mixed use development guidelines, the existing MUC or the proposed MUR guidelines. Therefore, staff recommended the applicant change their map amendment request from MUR to commercial and include the Tanner Creek project to the west in the amendment with a change from MUC to medium high density residential. Revisions to the conceptual development plan and associated exhibits have also been amended to address previous comments in the staff report and discussion from the hearings. Property associated with the amendment to the future land use map consists of approximately 70 acres of land, and the portion associated with the annexation consists of 18 acres of land. The general location of the property is at the northwest corner of South Meridian Road and I-84 on the south side of Waltman Lane. The map on the left there shows the existing, on the top there, the existing future land use map designations for this property and the general area around the property. The map on the bottom shows the requested change to the future land use map. The applicant is requesting, as I mentioned, an amendment to the future land use map to change the land use designation on 70.4 acres of land from mixed use community to commercial. I'm echoing here, excuse me just a second. The commercial designation is requested to be 34.3 acres and the medium high density residential is proposed to be 36.1 acres approximately. Based on the analysis in the staff report, staff finds the proposed development plan is generally consistent with the requested future land use designation of commercial for the subject property and medium high density residential for the adjacent property to the west, which is Tanner Creek. Further, the proposed future land use designations provide for a better transition in uses from existing and future residential uses to the west and northwest, and are compatible with adjacent future land use designations and land uses in this area. The applicant also proposes to annex 18.3 acres of land, as shown there on the exhibit on the right, with a CG, general retail and service commercial zoning district consistent with the proposed future land use amendment to commercial. The subject property is part of an enclave area surrounded by city annex property. The plan on the left is the original development plan that you reviewed on this project when it was before you the last time. The one on the right is the proposed revised plan. This is a little easier to see here, so I'll flip to this plan. The revised conceptual development plan submitted as shown depicts how the property proposed to be annexed, as well as the area currently zoned CG to the north is planned to develop with 2 big box retail stores. Retail 1, which is approximately 153,300 square feet, and retail 2, which is approximately 80,500 square feet, 4 pads and 5 shops. The area shown on the concept plan on the bottom portion, and that's just let's see, this one. Everything south of this red line is proposed to be annexed. Everything north is already annexed in the city and zone CG. The portion of the site currently in the city is entitled to develop in accord with UDC standards, regardless of whether or not the proposed annexation is approved, as there is not a development agreement in effect for that property. I will note, though, as part of the new development agreement for the property proposed to be annexed, the applicant has agreed to enter into a development agreement on the entire property. Sole access for the development is proposed via 3 accesses from Waltman Lane, a collector street. In accord with UDC 11-3A, 3A2, which supports limiting access points to collector streets and requires a cross-access ingress-egress easement to be granted to adjoining properties where access to a local street is not available, staff recommends a driveway is provided alongside the proposed pathway across the 10-Mile Creek to the west, unless otherwise waived by City Council, which will provide interconnectivity between these 2 developments. The applicant has submitted an emergency access easement agreement with the property owner to the west for secondary emergency access via Ruddy Drive and Waltman Lane. In no time should construction traffic associated with the development of this site be allowed to access the site using Ruddy Drive through the Landing and Tanner Creek subdivisions, other than, like I said, emergency access. Improvements are required to Waltman Lane, including reconstruction of the bridge over the 10-Mile Creek west of this site with the Tanner Creek projects. Improvements to the section of Waltman that abuts this site will be determined by ACHD with a future development application, since this is only an annexation request. The extension of Corporate Drive to the northwest of this site, designated as a collector street on the master street map, including construction of a bridge over the 10-Mile Creek from the north to Waltman Lane, is proposed to be completed with the first phase of development with the Tanner Creek project prior to issuance of building permits. If the Tanner Creek project does not go forward and complete the improvements to Waltman and Corporate as planned, staff is recommending that these improvements are completed by this developer through a cooperative development agreement with Ada County Highway District, as noted in the staff report. Based on the findings of the traffic impact study for the proposed project, which includes the Tanner Creek project, the Meridian Road Waltman Lane intersection would exceed ACHD's acceptable level of service thresholds. With previous development applications for the Tanner Creek property, ACHD did not recommend any mitigation at the intersection due to right-of-way constraints impacts to existing businesses and substantial intersection redesign and construction, making the recommended mitigation infeasible. A letter prepared by 6 Mile Engineering, dated January 23rd of this year, in response to comments and feedback during the City Council hearing for this project, was submitted to ACHD, proposing phased alternative improvements at the Meridian Road and Waltman Lane intersection to address traffic impacts from these developments. A 3-phase concept design was proposed, in which the first 2 designs did not require any additional right-of-way dedication, and the final phase did. ACHD reviewed their proposal and does not recommend any modifications to the intersection, as under all concept designs, these modifications would negatively impact existing operations at both the interchange and ramps. ACHD's concern also extended to the impacts the proposed modifications would have to the Central Drive and Corporate Drive intersections at Main Street and Progress Avenue. While the proposed improvements may benefit both of the proposed developments in the short term, they'll likely negatively impact the already congested area, roadways, and intersections. These improvements, without significant widening, increase corridor travel times and interchange queue lengths, further compounding existing congestion in this area. ACHD believes that there are alternatives that may be considered, such as converting Central Drive and Waltman Lane and Corporate Drive to a one-way couplet, which is anticipated to reduce both queue lanes and the impacts to the Meridian Road and I-84 interchange system. The construction of the Linda Road overpass, which is 3/4 of a mile to the west, is scheduled in ACHD's 5-year work plan for construction in 2026 and 27. Which should improve traffic conditions on Meridian Road by providing another north-south connection over I-84. The commission and city council should consider if higher levels of traffic and congestion in this area are acceptable when acting on this application. If not, consideration should be given to the inclusion of a provision in the development agreement which limits development to the large Retail 1 store at this time, and delays the Retail 2 building in pads 3 and 4 in the shops until such time as the Linda Road overpass is completed or other improvements occur that allow for an acceptable level of service to be provided as determined by ACHD. There has been no written testimony from the public received on this application. Staff is recommending approval with the requirement of a development agreement. And just with a caveat, if council does not approve the requested amendment to the future land use map, staff is recommending denial of the annexation request based on incompatibility of the proposed development with the existing mixed-use community future land use map designation. The applicant is here tonight to present. I guess we're gonna hold the applicant testimony. Okay, excuse me. I will roll right into the Tanner Creek project then. The applications before you on the Tanner Creek project are a development agreement modification, a rezone, a preliminary plat, and a conditional use permit. This site consists of 38 acres of land. It's owned CG, and it's located west of South Meridian Road on the south side of Waltman Lane and the north side of I-84. Two previous development applications similar to this were denied for this property in 2018 and 2020. Comprehensive plan future land use map designation, as I mentioned before, is mixed use community with a request for an amendment to medium high density residential with the I-84 and Meridian Road project. The applicant requests a modification to the existing development agreement, which allows commercial and office and hotel uses to develop on the site, as shown here on these concept plans. Two different concept plans were included in the existing development agreement for this site. And the applicant is proposing to replace it with a new development agreement, allowing a mix of residential uses, including single-family residential, detached, attached dwellings, townhouse dwellings, and multifamily residential apartments. Comes with my clicker here, as shown on the concept plan here before you. A rezone of 41.89 acres of land is proposed from the CG to the R8 zoning district, consists of 12.16 acres, to the R15 district, which consists of 12.27 acres, and to the R40 zoning district, which consists of 17.46 acres. A preliminary plat is proposed as shown, consisting of 130 building lots. And I'll go through the breakdown of those: 83 single family, 45 townhome, and 2 multifamily, and 20 common lots on 38.05 acres of land in the R8, R15, and R40 zoning district. Plat is proposed to develop in 4 phases as shown on the plan there on the right. Yeah. See that very good. The bold lines are the phase lines. This is phase 1 right here where my pointer's at. Phase 2 is directly east of that. Phase 3 is to the south and west. Last phase 4 is on the southeast. The applicant is requesting flexibility in the phasing to adjust the number of lots, combination of lots, and number of phases to reflect changing market conditions. Staff is amenable to this request unless otherwise restricted in the cooperative development agreement with ACHD or as otherwise approved by City Council. Because noise from I-84 will greatly affect future residents in this area, staff is recommending noise abatement in the form of a berm and wall is constructed per UDC standards in its entirety with the first phase of development as a provision of the development agreement. Currently, it is proposed to be constructed with the associated phases. Access is proposed via the extension of Ruddy Drive at the west boundary of the site and via 2 accesses to and from Waltman Lane at the northern boundary of the site. The applicant is proposing to construct the extension of Corporate Drive at Collector Street off-site from its current terminus north of the 10-mile creek to Waltman Lane with an existing right-of-way with the first phase of development. The construction of Corporate will include the construction of a new bridge over the 10-mile creek. This will provide additional access to the site and provide for additional access when the 10-mile creek bridge on Waltman is being reconstructed. The road north of the bridge should be constructed as required by ACHD. The staff report recommends the roadway south of the bridge to Waltman Lane is constructed as a complete street section with detached 10-foot wide multi-use pathways along both sides of the street. and that is DA provision 1B. Because there is not sufficient right-of-way at this time, staff recommends a change to the staff report to only require a 5-foot wide detached sidewalk as required by ACHD. That, consider that change. These improvements shall be complete prior to issuance of any building permits on this site. The applicant is proposing improvements to Waltman Lane in accord with ACHD requirements with a 10-foot wide detached sidewalk within the street buffer. The improvements to Waltman will require reconstruction of the existing bridge over the 10-Mile Creek and should be completed as required by ACHD in the cooperative development agreement. The proposed qualified open space and site amenities meet and exceed UDC standards. Conceptual building elevations were submitted for the proposed single-family residential homes and townhomes as shown. I'm just going through these quickly as I know the applicant has a presentation on these. A conditional use permit is proposed for a multifamily development consisting of 280 residential apartment units on 15.88 acres of land in the R40 zoning district. Private streets are required for addressing purposes within the development. The proposed qualified open space and site amenities in the multifamily portion also meet and exceed UDC standards. Conceptual elevations were also submitted for the apartment and the clubhouse buildings as shown. As mentioned with the previous application, the construction of Linda Road overpass, half a mile to the west, scheduled in the 5-year work plan for construction in 2026 and 27. Should improve traffic conditions on Meridian Road by providing another north-south connection over ID4. The commission and city council should consider if higher levels of traffic and congestion in this area are acceptable when acting on this application. If not, consideration should be given to the inclusion of a provision in the development agreement which limits development to the single-family and townhome portions of the development at this time and delays the multifamily portion of the development until such time as the Linda Road overpass is completed or other area improvements occur that allow for an acceptable level of service to be provided as determined by ACHD. Written testimony has been received on this application from the following. Keith McMahon, he requests this project is denied due to the density proposed and the negative impact on traffic in this area. That letter is in the public comments. You should have already seen that. And then a written testimony from Becky McKay, Engineering Solutions, the applicant's representative, in response to the staff report, and I'll let Becky go. Staff is recommending approval per the staff report. Just with a caveat as mentioned in the previous application, if the proposed map amendment is not approved, staff recommends denial of the proposed development agreement modification and consequently the rezone preliminary plat and conditional use permit applications due to inconsistency of the proposed development plan with the existing MUC designation. Staff will stand for any questions.
Commissioners, do we have any questions for staff?
No.
No.
All right, then would the applicants like to come forward? And please state your name and address for the record. And then one additional thing before you do, given the small number of commissioners that are available tonight, I want to make sure, especially so that we get this right. So I will ask you to speak, err on the side of speaking too closely into the mic. And my fellow commissioners online, if you're having any trouble hearing, please let us know so that we can solve that. I want to make sure there's nothing missed. Thank you. Name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm Becky McKay with Engineering Solutions, business address 1029 North Rosario and Meridian. I'm here this evening representing Challenger Development for the Tanner Creek application. We have before you this evening a rezone, preliminary plat, a conditional use permit, and a development agreement modification. The property, the subject property that you're looking at is 38.05 acres. Thank you. The property, just to kind of give you an idea of the location, the property is located just on the west side of Meridian Road. It is south of Waltman Lane. To the east is the Landing subdivision. That's a single-family development, which is currently zoned R4. On our southern boundary is Interstate 84. North of Waltman Lane, there are some estate residential, there's some agricultural. Kitty corner to us is a mini storage facility. And then obviously to the east of us is the proposed Hawkins development. This property is currently zoned CG, General Retail and Service Commercial. The rezone before you this evening, we are asking to downzone the property to R8, medium density residential, R15, medium high density residential, and R40, high density residential. Oh, there, okay. It's just slow. So this particular 38.05 acres is a combination of 9 parcels. So historically, there were multiple single-family dwellings on these properties and then an agricultural parcel to the south. So by consolidating these 9 parcels here along Waltman Lane, that makes up the Tanner Creek property. To kind of give you a little bit of history on this property, it was annexed and zoned in 2008, 15 years ago as CG. In the original development agreement, it was anticipated concept plan was submitted and tied to their DA for a mixture of big box, commercial, retail, office, and hotel use. Obviously, after 15 years, the proposed 400,000 square feet of commercial and office development and hotel never transpired. This area has been talked about. I've been doing work in the city of Meridian for over 30 years. And the Waltman Lane area has always been discussed as an area that the city wanted to develop, but there was always a difficulty in trying to get adequate access into this area. In 2018, Matt Schultz submitted application to the city for the Tanner Creek property that you see there highlighted in blue, asking for comprehensive plan map amendment, development agreement modification, and rezone. The application was denied by the city council. They had some concerns about traffic congestion at Waltman Lane, impact on schools, and the lack of a commercial component, because they wanted to see that there was kind of a mixed use within this area. Then in 2020, Mr. Schultz submitted an application before the city. It was very similar. And the city council denied it a second time. And they indicated, we feel it's premature for this application to come through until we know what's going to happen on the adjoining property to the east. Until such time as we know we have the full picture along Waltman Lane, we are reluctant to approve anything. And they said, we know we want a commercial component in addition to a residential component. And if we approve you for residential, what happens if the property to the east comes through asking for residential also? And we may not get that mixed commercial component employment center that we've kind of envisioned in this area. So strike two. Then the Hawkins property came through independently. And as Sonia indicated, the city council reviewed it and said, we'd like to see you work with staff to make some changes to your site plan and remand it back to the commission and have the two projects come through concurrently so that we can see the big picture and see obviously the integration of these two properties and the mitigation that can be done with two different developers working to improve the transportation system in this area. One of the problems with this Waltman Lane area is, as you can see by this larger aerial map, this section is bounded by Linder Road on the west, Franklin Road on the north, Meridian Road on the east, and I-84. And then you have 10 Mile Creek that traverses the section, creating another boundary or barrier to interconnectivity. Since Linder Road did not have an overpass over I-84, this section was kind of segregated from itself. When the landing went in, they have no vehicular bridges over 10 Mile Creek. So they're basically, that entire subdivision is coming off of Linder Road without any true secondary access. With the Tanner Creek property developing, it provided other transportation opportunities that not only will benefit the projects that are proposed and you're reviewing this evening, but will also enhance the interconnectivity of the landing subdivision. By the connection of Ruddy Drive, which is a stub street that the landing has on their eastern boundary, we will be bringing that in as a collector road up to Waltman Lane. And then with the extension of Corporate Drive down south and building a bridge across 10 Mile Creek, we'll be providing another interconnectivity that will also allow for traffic not only to go to Meridian Road, but to go north up to Franklin or to go west out to Linder. With the Linder overpass, everyone is pretty much in agreement that it is going to really change traffic patterns in this section because you will have this alternative route south. And with the State Highway 16 extension to the interstate, creating another interchange and another crossing, that's also going to make a significant difference in the interconnection between North and South Meridian and the city of Meridian and the city of Cuna, because I-84 is a barrier. Here you can see the Tanner Creek rendering along with the Hawkins commercial development rendering. One of the things that we did is we worked closely together to try to integrate the two projects to make them pedestrian friendly, make them inviting for people on bikes, skateboards, scooters, walking back and forth, trying to alleviate the number of trips that would be on the Ada County Highway District network. So there's you can see the Tanner Creek project there. So we have, as I indicated, the R8, the R15, and the R40 zones. The overall density that you're looking at here is 10.72 dwelling units per acre. And then we did break the density down within each zone so that the commission could see, like within the R8 zone, where we have our single family dwellings, the density is 4.14 dwelling units per acre. And we have those single family dwelling units adjacent to the landing. So you're seeing a transition from R4 to R8. Then in the interior, we have R15, and our density within the R15 area is 7.09 dwelling units per acre. Then as we go to our eastern side, which is the transition that we have next to 10 Mile Creek and the commercial development proposed by Hawkins, we're at 17.63 dwelling units per acre in the R40. So as you can see, we're not pushing the density of any particular zone, but obviously transitioning from low density to medium density to high density. We feel that this is an ideal location for a mixed residential project, considering that the project is located 1/4 mile west of a major arterial roadway, Meridian Road, and south of Waltman, which is designated a collector, and then with the extension of Corporate Drive, which is also a collector. This area will have access to the Meridian Road interchange and I-84. So we feel that that this is an appropriate location for what's being proposed. As far as that original development agreement, the council had indicated what they wanted to see with that 2008 development agreement. We have accomplished with our project by having east-west and north-south pedestrian connections. Your master pathway plan shows a regional multi-use pathway along the west side of 10 Mile Creek, which is on our eastern boundary. So we will be constructing that, and it will be not just 10 feet, but 14 feet in width. And then we have a 10-foot east-west pathway that will connect over to the multi-use pathway and over to the Hawkins development. In looking at the overall project, we feel that the incorporation of the mixed use residential and then the mixed use commercial will obviously be the best fit for this area by balancing out the traffic generated by the two projects. We have 83 single family lots that will be ranging from 3,850 square feet up to 10,500 square feet. We have 16 alley loaded lots and 67 front loaded homes. And we have varying widths for different economic targets. We have 40-foot wide lots, 50-foot wide lots, and 60-foot wide lots. We have 45 townhomes that are all alley loaded. They range from 2,400 to 3,884 square feet, and with an average of 2,739 square feet. As I indicated, our overall density, including the multifamily 280 units, is 10.72. It's anticipated that we would build this in 4 phases. I always ask for flexibility in phasing because we never know what the market conditions are going to do. If market conditions continue to decline, obviously our phases get smaller. If market conditions improve, then sometimes the phasing gets larger. So therefore, what's before you is 128 attached and detached single-family dwellings, and then the 280 units. So we have a total of 408 dwelling units on the property. We tried to balance out, so we didn't end up with a lot of garage orientation. We have about 47% alley loaded where we have front porches, and emphasize, you know, the kind of cottage type look with different materials. And then we have front loaded about 53%. Along I-84, where we have the single family dwellings, those will all be single level dwellings. We have a 50-foot proposed buffer along I-84, and we will also be building a 9-foot high berm. And then we have a rhino rock type concrete wall as a sound barrier and landscaping along that entire south boundary. Along Waltman Lane, your code requires 20 feet for a collector buffer. We have 37 feet. Within the multifamily area and under the conditional use permit, We have a total of 12 multifamily buildings. Of those 12, 11 are 3-story. The building that is adjacent with the side view to Waltman Lane is a 2-story building. We've balanced out our number of bedrooms. We'll have about 33% 1-bedrooms or 94 units. 54% will be 2-bedrooms with 152 units, and we have 34 3-bedroom units. The total parking provided meets your code update, which requires, I believe, 579 spaces. We have 581 spaces. So we basically have 1.5 spaces for the 1-bedroom, 2 spaces for the 2-bedroom, and 3 spaces for the 3-bedroom. And then we also have guest parking, which is a new requirement under the code. In the single-family amenities, we wanted to make sure that we hit the mark on our amenities. Our qualified open space within the single-family area is 6.49 acres or 17%. We have a central common area that's 1.70 acres in the single-family and townhome area. We have a large play structure, half basketball court, pickleball court. We have benches and then 10-foot pathways that lead over to the multi-use pathway. We will have pedestrian-friendly crossings. They'll be all striped and signed pedestrian crossings so we can get people safely across the street if they go east and west through the project. In the multifamily area, we have 3.76 acres of open space or 21.35% qualified open space. We'll have a 5,000, about a 5,500 square foot, a clubhouse. It will have a fitness facility, kitchen facilities, conference room, community gathering area. We'll have covered patio with a barbecue, outdoor barbecue area. We'll have the Greenbelt Plaza area where we have sitting areas and plantings. And that will be mirrored in the Hawkins development. We'll also have a swimming pool with a hot tub, cabana at the pool deck, play structure, picnic gazebo, pickleball sports court. And within the clubhouse, we will have a bicycle repair station. And then we also have a separate room indoor for a dog wash area. We're going to provide charging stations for EV vehicles. And we've provided for linear parks, micropaths and pathways, multiple picnic shelters, and then obviously the multi-use pathway. This kind of gives you an idea of the townhome elevations. So we're going to have some diversity. You can see there's a lot of different modulation. When we rear load those townhomes, obviously the curb appeal along the public streets is very attractive. This is some of the cottage houses that we'll have on the alley load. As you can see, they have little porches, very different roof changes, very cute, very cottage looking. On the single family lots, we will have some 2-story, 2-car garage. We'll have some single story 2-car garage. There's another one. And then this is an elevation of the 2-story multifamily building that will have just 16 units that adjoins Waltman. The other building is turned, so only the end of the building. We want to minimize any wall effect next to Waltman Lane.
Ms. McKay?
Yes,
Can I interject? Can we stop the clock just for a second, please? Madam Clerk? I just want to make sure we all have a common understanding of the time limit. So I just wanted you to be aware that so I meant 30 minutes in total for both applicants and we're about 20 minutes in. So I just want to
okay,
make sure we
I
have a
will wrap
common
up, sir. Thank you.
That's between you and your fellow applicant, but I just want to make sure we had a
I
common
want to make
understanding.
sure, thank you, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Because I never know where I'm at. I'll wrap it up here. So this is the elevation of the 2-story building. These are elevations of the 3-story buildings, these renderings. As you can see, they're very attractive. They got different roof lines, a lot of modulation. We have covered parking, we have uncovered parking. That's a picture of the clubhouse, swimming pool, cabana, fireplace area. So we want to make sure that we provide excellent gathering areas. And this kind of gives you the pedestrian connection perspective of the two projects that you see there. So that's Tanner Creek. And then if you see to the distance, that's the Hawkins property. So we've been working with the landscape architect so that each project mirrors the same type of amenity on each side of the creek. And then we have a pedestrian bridge that takes everyone over. And I'll stop there and I will turn the time over to
I'll try and be under 7 minutes. My name's Ethan Mansfield, Hawkins Companies. We are the commercial portion of this development. And Sonia, if you could bring up presentation for me. Thank you very much. So yeah, I'll kind of pick up where Becky left off. This is the commercial, this is the eastern side of the project on the southwest corner of Waltman and Meridian. So this, our application includes the comp plan amendment to go to commercial on our section, a comp plan amendment for medium high density residential on Becky's portion of the project, and then an annexation and a rezone on that small piece to the south. Let me just show you here, not quite yet. Anyway, small piece on the to the south of where we're not actually in the city limits. So I'll give you a brief overview. Becky went through most of it. So we were heard by City Council in June of 2022, and our application was remanded back to Planning and Zoning Commission to be heard concurrently with Tanner Creek. And they wanted to ensure that the TIS was accepted by the Ada County Highway District. Later that month, ACHD accepted the TIS and drafted some recommendations. So over the course of the next year, we spent time both with Tanner Creek and significant time with Meridian planning and zoning staff to make changes to our site plan. We also worked with our tenants to get our site plan dialed in. That was really important to us to obviously meet the requirements of staff and the suggestions of staff in the staff report. So in July 2023, city staff expresses that they're generally supportive of the new site plan and accepts the site plans together. And then in October, last month, a couple weeks ago, staff asked us to, rather than go with a mixed use regional designation, that we change to the commercial land use designation for the Hawkins development, the medium density residential designation for Tanner Creek. The site plans didn't change. So we still have clearly a mix of uses. We have residential on the Tanner Creek side and we have commercial on our side of the creek. And so that looks like this map before you. As you can see, it's pretty darn similar to the other corners of the intersection. You know, you've got commercial on the busy corners, and then you transition into residential as you move inward from those major arterials, especially right around the interchange. So overall, we think that this configuration makes a lot more sense than the previously approved development agreement, which had commercial on Becky's side and nothing on our corner here. And again, so this is kind of what we're looking at. Here's the annexation rezone request down at the bottom, kind of bottom right southeast corner, and showing where Tanner Creek would be. And then this is, you've seen this, 15 or 20 times already tonight, so I won't bore you. I would like to talk a little bit about our site plan evolution, however. So on the left side of your screen, you'll see the old site plan. Right side of the screen, you'll see what's before you this evening. I'd like to thank staff for working with us to dial this in and getting it to a place that we can, approve, that we can have an approval. We think it's a much better site plan. The drive aisles are oriented in we think a more logical way. Obviously the transition between Tanner Creek and our development makes a lot more sense. Overall, we're really, really proud of this site plan. We've got community serving shops uses right up against Waltman. You know, we've got a couple drive-throughs kind of on the Meridian roadside. And we think it kind of meets the needs of, you know, the fact that it is a regional corner, serving the needs of the region, but also having these community serving uses to meet the needs of the immediate surrounding community and providing pedestrian connectivity so that this immediate surrounding community can walk or bike to the project. That's, I think I'm really proud of this site plan. So anyway, I'll stop there. Here's the pedestrian circulation plan. You can see that, you know, if you're a pedestrian, you can get pretty much anywhere on the site. You know, and we provide pretty robust open space amenities. I think, you know, we'll go through those in a second, but I think that's very important. Here you can see we've kind of modeled 3 different concepts of kind of plaza amenity areas. And so I'll start with area B. These are kind of designed, or sorry, area A-type plazas. These are kind of designed to be kind of patio seating areas. And, you know, these are just kind of illustrative concepts to kind of show what the design intent is. Areas A, these are the B types. These are kind of our main entry plaza when you're turning in off of Waltman. You know, it's kind of designed to be an open space where people can kind of hang out, as well as kind of some patio seating that isn't really, you know, it kind of merges together seamlessly to provide a really comfortable pedestrian experience. Here's another couple of views of that. And then I think most importantly, and Becky hit on this, is we have our connecting plaza area. The design language is pretty similar across both the multifamily and the commercial side. It's a really cool feature, I think, of this project. So here's looking at just the residential side, kind of modeling it, showing what it's going to look like. I think it's pretty cool, pretty neat. And then the commercial side, kind of mirroring that concept to kind of provide that pedestrian and bike comfort as you move between the 2 developments. Again, it's tough because there's a creek running through it, so you can't seamlessly merge them. But this site plan, I think, does a really good job of tying the 2 together despite the geographic barrier of the creek. One thing I'd just like to ask for a condition to be changed is that the city is currently recommending a street with 2 multi-use pathways be punched through this area. So the area shown here is about the same amount of area. I think it's actually 74 feet. We modeled it with the corporate drive extension to provide 2 multi-use pathways, a drive area, 25-foot driveway, and the associated buffer widths. So that's about what you're looking for your street width. Now, if you look back on this, you can see that that's pretty much where our pedestrian amenity are really nice kind of plaza areas connecting the 2 together. That's where they're located. So what we would end up having to do to provide this connectivity with the street is remove some of these really nice amenities. And we think that since the goal of, you know, the comprehensive plan goals clearly state, right, that the desire for the pedestrian comfort, the experience of the pedestrian comfort, we think that it makes a lot more sense to create amenities like this than it does to have a street with just the pathways. One other quick condition we are asking for a modification of, and not a removal of, but a modification of, is the construction of a stub driveway to the adjacent out parcel. We worked really hard to try to get this parcel under contract. This is up on the northwest corner of our site. So this is up adjacent to the creek along Waltman. We were unable to acquire this parcel. They were adamantly opposed to selling their property. So the condition from staff was to provide a cross-access agreement to allow any future development to access through our development. and to construct a stub driveway to the edge of that development. We are not, we're amenable to providing a cross access to the future development. However, when we took a look at where and how we would actually connect that stub in, we,
You could finish up that thought. Right.
so we looked at it, and there will be some significant grading and drainage issues if we try and construct a stub driveway. Mainly, we'll create kind of a waterfall that goes into this adjacent property, into their backyard. So we don't really want to actually construct the stub street. We'd really like to simply provide the cross access agreement, which protects that.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions for the applicants?
No.
I do not.
No.
All right, I have a couple of questions. Thanks for, and this might also touch on what you're speaking to regarding the staff report, and this goes for Becky too. Just curious about any other issues with the staff report, any other disagreements with staff recommendations. Particularly one that I'm really interested in is the possible recommendation to require phasing based on the Linder overpass completion as part of a development agreement. Just curious about any thoughts on those.
I'll address that. Thanks, Commissioner Smith. We don't have any other issues with the staff report. Those were my only two concerns. Regarding phasing, that puts us in a really, really challenging position because we'd liked this center to develop in a cohesive manner, and it takes years sometimes from when we have surety that we can actually develop in a certain way to actually getting a door open, a restaurant open, a shop open. The development process takes a long time. And so when we don't have surety that we can do the development, let's say we get surety, let's say we had surety tonight or even at council, it might be 3 to 5 years before we even finish this center's development in its entirety, simply because of working through deals with tenants, potential tenants, signing LOIs, signing leases doing due diligence, all of that development work. So we really need that surety now to begin to even start figuring out those details. Since the Linder overpass is going to start construction in 2026, we feel that, that's an appropriate timeline given what we're looking to do.
And Becky, I'll ask you the same. One, I guess, thought on that and whether this changes anything is whether that might be, I believe we have in the past made certificate of occupancy contingent upon completion or access or something like that. And so I wonder if that could help ameliorate things, that you could at least get the ball rolling on some of those things, but that final occupancy wouldn't be granted. But that kind of applies to that question for you too.
Yeah, Commissioner Smith, I did discuss that with my client, and as Ian stated, these projects don't pop up overnight. With our first phase of Tanner Creek, we have to design the bridge and the corporate drive extension and get that online in conjunction with our first phase. And then after that's done, then we have to work on Waltman Lane, replacing the bridge, building it out to a collector standard. So there's a lot of things that obviously improvements that we have to install before we can even bring on phase one. The engineering, the plan approvals take place, as Ian said, instead of months now, it takes over years. So my estimation is that that you're not going to see a lot of traffic generation before that overpass is installed in fiscal year 26, 27. Because we've got a lot of work ahead of us. We'll have to be doing low Mars, 404 permits, no rises. But to impose a condition that you can only build one phase or you can only build the target, that's going to hamper their marketing. And my client was concerned about that. We're convinced that our timing is going to obviously be within that time frame. But like with our first phase, I calculated I'm only generating 850 trips with phase one. And you've got 55 homes that have to be built and they're not going to be occupied or built overnight. So I don't think it's necessary that condition be imposed on the project. Because like I said, I fear it will hamper their marketing and their ability to create a cohesive retail, office, and employment center, which obviously we're going to be part of as far as the residential component, and our residents hopefully will work there and support it. And I've been told that lender, I mean, that's the number one priority, that lender overpass. I mean, they're going full bore. They've already, I did the Kendall Ford Center that's under construction on the west side of where it comes across the freeway. They've already acquired the right of way. I mean, they're rocking and they're rolling. So I don't see that there's going to be any type of delay.
I think one other thing that's helpful to consider is that these other improvements, namely Corporate Drive and the Ruddy extension and the expansion of Waltman Lane, these other improvements will be completed prior to occupancy. And I think that, I mean, that will obviously add an extreme amount of connectivity to the surrounding area. You know, I put this together. We all, you know, this is where we all live. You know, previously you just had this little purple connection here. By opening up that connection to Franklin, it really changes the game for not just our development, but for people who live in North Meridian, to access the interchange, to access, you know, goods and services, and then the connection to the adjacent neighborhood too. So those blue connections there really have this outsized impact. They're small connections, but they have a really outsized impact on the ability of the community, surrounding community to travel through the area. And we think that in and of itself is, you know, something that is pretty special with this development.
And you're going to be capturing.
Right. And we'll be capturing trips, you know, not really generating new, I mean, you know, a commercial development doesn't necessarily in and of itself create new trips. It mainly captures trips from other households in the valley, right? Because really the only way you can get a new trip is by having a new person driving a new car through the area. And really we're not adding any new people to the network. We're just adding a central location for which to shop and play.
Thank you. So, and correct me if I'm wrong. If I don't want to put any words in anyone's mouth, it seems like it's a question of more of whether it's necessary, rather, especially for Becky, for your development, rather than if it's outright harmful, or whether it would prevent it might make things a little bit more of a task, but it wouldn't inherently prevent the project from being completable. Is that to some?
I would say, Commissioner Smith, that it could be extremely detrimental to our project. We don't know the extent to which it could harm our project because there's so much uncertainty with tying the ability for us to construct part of our project to a public agency's ability to create and complete an infrastructure project, that it really throws the uncertainty. I should just say this, the amount of uncertainty that it throws into the project is so immense that it very well could extremely negatively impact the ability for this project to be constructed.
Does that change at all if it, say, I know the staff recommendation is, or staff potential recommendation is constructing retail 1 before the Linder overpass and waiting until after the Linder overpass to construct the rest. Does the calculus change at all, whether it's, say, the other units and then retail 1 and 2 after, or anything like that in terms of construction times, lease signings, et cetera? Does that make any of that doable at all?
Commissioner Smith, I will say, it is imperative that retail 1 is there because that is the driver of other tenants. However, it is, again, really totally uncertain whether or not, we might be able to construct retail 1, for example, and then suddenly the tenants that are interested in the spaces along Waltman, the shops tenants, the shops tenants that are difficult to find already sometimes, and the tenants along Meridian Road might just say, no, not interested. We're going somewhere else. Something could happen in the economy. We could find ourselves with a bunch of empty pads. We could find ourselves with an empty retail 2. Those are all very, very realistic scenarios, which is why we are seeking approval for the entire commercial project.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, with commercial developments, I've done quite a few commercial industrial developments. There has to be certainty. Some of these people that may want to lease a building or build a building, if there's some condition where there's uncertainty in which they can bring their business online, that could really hurt the Hawkins company. Whereas obviously with our residential development, that's kind of not the case. It's more that we would prefer, to build this out in a timely fashion. We think the timelines will work. And we are adding capacity to the network to compensate for what we're generating. Right now, what's approved on the Tanner Creek property would generate 10,300 vehicle trips a day. So when you combine the Hawkins commercial with their 10,891 at build out, then you combine the Tanner Creek, which is 3,014 trips, you're talking basically a difference of 3,600 vehicle trips per day. Right now, Waltman's horribly underutilized at 190 vehicle trips per day. Once we bring corporate in and you've got access to Franklin, you've got secondary access to Meridian Road, and we rebuild Waltman, we've got a lot of work ahead of us. But our clients obviously need to, like I said, have some certainty that they're not going to spend millions of dollars on this infrastructure and then find that their hands are tied because they can only bring on so many uses within a specific time frame.
Thank you. Understandable. I do have a question for any other commissioners. If you have any questions, I'll ask after this. I just wanted to get staff response, I guess, to the Tanner Creek, the 2 asks around not requiring that street connectivity in favor of pedestrian amenities and not requiring the stub driveway to that abutting property. Are there any major staff concerns around that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, you said the timing of did you say the timing of the buffer along I-84 on the Tanner Creek property?
I believe the 2 asks specifically were regarding the street connectivity requirement
Between the 2 developments?
between the 2 developments.
Our UDC requires cross-access to be provided when access is not available from a local street. Waltman is going to be reclassified as a collector street, so that would require a driveway connection, interconnectivity, not necessarily public street, but a driveway connection. Our code does allow for a waiver by city council if they deem that appropriate.
Okay. And then as for the stub driveway, are there concerns there?
On the I-84 and Meridian
Um,
Road property. Yeah, the only concern I have is how that driveway gets constructed in the future. They'll have an access easement, but who would pay for that and, you know, that kind of thing. So if the applicant has a solution to that, I think we'd be amenable to it.
Yeah, Sonia, Commissioner Smith. I can say that I think one way to ensure cross-access would be to, right, have us sign a cross-access agreement, basically allowing cross-access from them to us, and then also limiting access from that parcel when it redevelops onto Waltman. So if you were to say no access from that parcel onto Waltman, when that parcel comes in to redevelop and they have access to our driveway, that would ensure that access was not taken onto Waltman, but instead through our project. That would be my, you know, if I put on my planner hat, that's kind of how I probably would solve it.
Yeah, but we couldn't, Chairman, excuse me, we couldn't condition that property to not take access on Waltman at this time because it's not part of this application. It's certainly something we'd look at in the future.
So that would be present in a future staff report for whatever eventually develops here. Potentially. Okay.
Like, it's always easier to catch it if there's a
Yeah.
constructed driveway and access, and going on to that property to construct the driveway and I'm assuming the applicant, I don't think you touched on that, Ethan, on who would pay for that construction of that driveway. I assume that you're thinking that developer of that property would pay for it.
Miss Allen and Commissioner Smith, I would assume that they would, just like as if they were connecting to a public street, they would be responsible for the cost of the driveway. You know, all of the things that I envision are basically just when that parcel redevelops, instead of paying for a connection to the public roadway, they would just pay for the connection to our driveway instead. And so really we're kind of hung up on just building that stub. We really don't want to have a situation, where they have a site plan that just in no way really matches where we happen to have constructed the driveway, because we don't really know what that site plan is going to look like. So we want flexibility to ensure that connectivity can happen realistically and most efficiently. And also that if we did connect something into there, there's a pretty significant grade change between where this driveway is going to end, where this drive that we are constructing is going to go north-south, and then where the parcel is, where the existing grade is on the parcel to the west. And so if we were to construct a stub, it would essentially almost like just drain water into the back of their property. And we don't really want to do that. And we end up spending a lot of money and time and engineering head scratching to like figure out how to not drain water into their property. And at that point, it would probably need to be reconfigured anyway upon the time that the parcel did develop, just to even out grades and to straighten out, you know, drainage and all the stuff that we kind of messed up just to put a stub street in there.
So staff and also, I guess, if this is amenable and if this is possible, I can't seem to remember the discussions we've had in the past around this. Would it be possible to put as a condition in the development agreement that they have money set aside to pay for that stub street if that property gets redeveloped in the future? So they don't have to construct it now, but we have surety that it will be constructed as part of that application.
Chairman, you could certainly do that. I'm not sure about I'll defer to our city attorney on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you could craft a condition or a provision within a development agreement that would deal with that general topic. We typically don't like road sureties just because of, number one, there's some questions about the viability of that. But secondly, just the, I guess the accounting and the administration that goes with something like that to collect and hold a small amount of money in the scheme of things. So we typically don't do that. I guess the way I'd answer the question more succinctly is I think we could do a craft a condition around that topic that would require construction at a date certain or with a trigger event. I would probably recommend that we not try to require a financial, like a deposit or some kind of road surety today. It's just administratively, it's difficult for us to monitor and maintain.
Mr. Chair, I believe you suggested that the applicant set aside money for that. in the
Yeah,
future?
my
Rather than the
concern is
city.
rather than not a surety or anything like that, but could we require them to, and it sounds like the answer is yes, to commit to building that road if this property is redeveloped, regardless of where that money is held, et cetera.
And Mr. Chairman, I guess there's two topics there. So one is, so a development agreement, if you distill it down, is really a contract between two parties, the city and the developer in this instance. And so contractually, I think you can craft a provision that would require some of that nature. So that's sort of topic one. Topic two is how do you enforce it? And so that's really, I think, by the other part of your question is, it's nice to know that you have some type of money on deposit, some kind of surety that would assure that the provision is carried out. That's the part that's a little more difficult just from an administrative perspective. I think the answer to both questions is yes, that would be a possibility. But I just know from previous discussions amongst city staff that there's some hesitation about the idea of the surety idea or us taking a deposit and monitoring and tracking a deposit over some period of time, maybe for several years.
That makes sense. And to the other,
Sorry, Mr.
no
Chair,
worries.
Definitely all those things are a concern of staff. Another alternative I might throw out is that in that cross-access easement agreement that Hawkins provides to that property owner, that they provide language in it that authorizes them, the developer of that property in the future, to go onto their property to make improvements and construct that driveway.
So sorry, I didn't fully track that. Could you?
Yeah, as part of that cross-access easement agreement that Hawkins grants to that property, include language in that would allow that property owner or developer to enter their property to construct those improvements on their property.
Okay.
Typically, like Ethan said, typically we require connection to public streets, but typically those are stubbed to the property boundary. That's the difference in this case. And this is not a public street. It's just it's an access driveway. But that's the problem we run into, is having that property owner go onto their property to, construct those improvements. So yeah, there's some issues with all this. Absolutely understand the applicant's concern though with drainage on that property. We don't want to create an issue with that either.
Right, and applicant, seems like that seems amenable to some extent.
Commissioner Smith, Miss Allen, I think that's probably the best solution that we could come to. We aren't a big fan of the surety idea. Having both been on the public sector side of administering those and the private sector side of administering those on both sides, it's an absolutely miserable experience for both parties. So I think that this solution's ideal, and we can craft easement language that allows the tie-in and allows construction to occur on our property for the specific, connection for the driveway.
All right, that's all the questions I have. Do any other commissioners before we open up to public comment have any additional
I
questions?
don't have any.
I don't have any either.
All right. Well, thank you. I'll now invite the public to comment. Do we have anyone?
We have a Terry Harper signed in.
Okay.
Say for the, sorry. I was gonna say, just for the record, so we can capture that, the citizen indicated that they chose not to to testify. They just wanted to hear what was happening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on signed in?
Kelsey Lorcher on via Zoom.
All right, Kelsey, are you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Lorcher. I live at 2099 West Snyder Drive. First and foremost, I'm very not for this application, very against it. One of the biggest issues that wasn't really talked about was the traffic impact study, and how there's going to be almost 14,000 vehicle trips, daily vehicle trips on Waltman Lane. And also there's going to be over 950 vehicles per hour during peak hours, and that's just with the Hawkins development. I wanted to go over one of the things I found with the ACHD submitted onto the application with their review. And they talk about Waltman Lane. I'm just going to go ahead and quote them. It says the traffic impact study did not evaluate Waltman Lane abutting the site, but the Tanner Creek traffic impact study indicated that Waltman Lane abutting the Meridian site is projected to exceed ACHD thresholds for a 3-lane collector road under the total build-out conditions in the PM peak hours and would need to be widened to 5 lanes to meet ACHD's acceptable LOS planning thresholds. However, there is not enough existing right-of-way off-site to construct this. This would not be consistent with the existing intersection configuration at Meridian Road / Waltman Lane, and tapering from a 5-lane road to a 2-lane road would create confusion for drivers. Staff recommends that the city of Meridian take this into consideration when evaluating this application, as ACHD cannot require additional improvements with this development application for Waltman Lane beyond widening this segment to 3 lanes abutting the site. So basically what that's saying is it's going to be a LOS F. It's going to be a grade F, even with 3 lanes. And they recommend they can't enforce, but ACHD recommends it needs to be widened to 5 lanes. And if the neighborhood to the west that will be coming through Ruddy Drive once that's open, that's not even part of the traffic impact study. There's no numbers on how many people are going to be coming through those neighborhoods to get to the Hawkins side or to get to I-84 from Meridian onto the ramps if they're going to Boise or whatever. So you're talking about 14,000 just from Waltman Lane and Corporate, and then we don't even know the number of the neighborhood going through Ruddy Drive onto Waltman. And another thing is that Ruddy Drive, with all the people coming in, they're going into Tanner Creek neighborhood out onto Waltman, and that creates a safety issue for the local streets inside the neighborhood. And the park's right there, it's near, and that's a whole other situation. So I just wanted to talk about just how wild and crazy our intersection at Meridian and Waltman Lane is already way over jam-packed with traffic. And this is just going to create so much chaos and just everything. If you look at the traffic impact studies, once Tanner Creek and once Hawkins is built, almost every intersection from Franklin and Meridian to Overland is F down the board, F everywhere. So this is not the smartest development to be. This is not the smartest location for this development. This development would be great somewhere else, but since our intersection is landlocked and there's not much we can do to improve it for new construction, to modify it, we're pretty much landlocked with all the neighborhoods, commercial, the roads, the bridge, the ramps, I-84. there's like no improvements. So this would, in my opinion, would not be a very smart to approve, due to future traffic. It's already at a failing rate. This is going to make it even worse. And I think it's said by like 2040, we're going to have 1 million people in the Treasure Valley. And honestly, I don't think the Linder overpass is going to really do much once we have 1 million people. I think it's going to be just as bad, if not worse, within the next 20 years. And that's all I have to say on that. So I would ask you to please deny this application.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else signed up?
Yes, Claire Manning.
Is that also via Zoom? Okay.
Mr. Manning, you should be able to share your screen when you're ready.
Hi. I'm getting ready here to share my screen. Oh, so it's not going to let me share my screen until someone else stops sharing.
We're fixing that now.
But hi, my name is Claire Manning. I live at 650 West Waltman Lane. You should be seeing a screen right now. Is that,
We can see
you
it.
please confirm? Okay. So while it is tempting to take a look at this area and think that it belongs as, you know, commercial or a regional use, you know, the simple fact of the matter is that you do not have infrastructure to support it. And there really is no path from the developers to support that infrastructure. So I want to take a few moments to share some of the nuances of the area with you guys, since, you know, I live here and I'm pretty familiar with the area. So right to the north, you already have some monstrous high density apartments here. This is the area next to the freeway where you'd like to put more commercial, and 17 acres of, you know, high density apartments here. And this development, it makes for a lot going down Waltman Lane. So let's take a look at how someone actually has to get into Waltman Lane. So you have over here, you have that high density developments that are existing that will spill out here into Meridian Road going towards the freeway, right? And more importantly, what you have going into the development for a left turn is this small little sliver of a buffer. And once that fills up, that will choke off an entire lane into the city. And it does not take much to fill that up. So, I mean, if we look at it a little closer, I've kind of parked here towards the end. So I think we'll notice it's not very big. And I also want to point out that to the right here, you can clearly see that there is no path to where you can open that to the left. And there's no path for them to widen the street on the other side. And, you know, here you can see four cars here in the area, and it fills up quite a bit of that. So there really isn't much buffer to get in, to get into the area. So it's extremely problematic to get into the subdivision, to what's proposed as the subdivisions and the commercial. So, I mean, I think Kelsey mentioned that it's already a little overrun, but maybe you're wondering like what it really looks like today. So this is what I see every day on my morning commute to Micron. So this is pretty common. You probably all experience it as well. And let's say I'm so lucky as to like actually get home off work during rush hour, kind of a bad picture, but you can see it's even challenging to get like in today into this area with a green light, with like, you know, traffic still coming over here where I still have a green light, and I'm completely blocked going in. So, you know, it's pretty clear from this that it shouldn't be a surprise to you that really is going to be a level of service F when they put this in. And, you know, this small little sliver, their Linder overpass will do nothing to help this. Linder overpass is never going to fix this. There is no path to fix this. The developer has no plan, and there never can be a plan because they're blocked by the blocked by ACHD and they're blocked by the state of Idaho. So I think that it's pretty clear that zoning this to allow this would be, as a commission, would be completely irresponsible. So I would ask you to deny this. Can I answer any questions?
Any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Manning?
No.
All right,
No.
thank you.
Thank you. We have no one else signed up, so anyone on Zoom, if you would like to testify, please raise your hand, or anyone else from the audience, if you'd like to come up and speak on this.
I have one more, Joe Lurcher.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, Joe, are you there?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. My name is Joe Larcher. I live at 740 Waltman Lane. I'm the agricultural triangle at the north of the Tanner project. My main concern for this project is just the safety of the residents. They're all talking about connectivity and walking paths. I've got some questions on the 10-foot walking path along Waltman Lane. What happens there where Mrs. Lee didn't sell her parcel? Does the 10-foot path stop and you have to walk out into Waltman Lane and then come back once you get past Tanner, and then go out into Waltman Lane and then come back into where Hawkins is developing? Also, right now, Waltman Lane is used as a walking path for a lot of residents in the Landing subdivision, and they walk up to Winco. And so a lot of concerns on just safety of the residents. When Ruddy Drive is opened up, all those cars are going to be coming down Waltman Lane, and that park is right there. There's no parking for the park, so people are going to park along the street next to that park because there's no assigned parking spots for the park. The Linder overpass, like Claire just said, it's not going to impact this at all. If you live in the Landing subdivision and you want to go to Boise, you're going to go through Ruddy Drive, Waltman Lane, and get stuck at that intersection. They talked about how many cars, 190 cars a day. That's 15 cars per minute. Right now, there's 6 families that live on Waltman Lane, and we get stuck in that subdivision. 6 families. I can't remember what the count was. I think it was, current count was, Becky said it. I can't remember what it was, but we get stuck. Claire showed that picture. This is every day we get stuck in that intersection to turn left onto Waltman Lane. We have to watch that light turn at least twice before the traffic coming from Winco turning in front of us and stops in front of us so that we can get across. Ada County Highway District has done nothing to help this. All plans that has been sent to them, they've denied. They're not going to fix it. So why would we want more cars onto an intersection that's already graded F? The corporate drive through my place, connecting up, it still comes back to the same intersection. They can go up corporate drive, turn right onto Meridian, and guess what? It's the same intersection. Until the highway district figures out somehow to fix the overpass, to fix the Waltman Lane, there's just no way that this project can handle the density that's being offered because of that intersection. So I strongly suggest public concern, public safety. There was no officer. Last time we had this meeting, there was a police officer, and it'd be nice if we could get their opinions on this. But please deny this just for the public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with a hand raised?
Yes, I have one more, Joey Lorcher.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my name's Joey Lorcher and I live at 5110 Dandridge Way. But at one point in time, I lived off of Pelican Way, which is in the landing, the next door neighborhood. And when I lived there, if the road would have been punched through to Waltman Lane, I would have took it every day to get to the freeway. So it'll be a big problem for Waltman Lane. And also, this wasn't touched at all, but the Tanner project is going to overrun Peregrine Elementary with kids, especially with the new high density apartments off of 10 Mile and Franklin, which is in Peregrine's area. So that's a whole nother issue at hand. But I strongly am against both developments, because like everybody said before, Waltman Lane can't handle it. The city of Meridian really can't handle it. So please vote against it. And that's all.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else with a hand raised?
No one else.
Would anyone in the audience like to come up and testify? All right. Would the applicant like to come back up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Becky McKay, Engineering Solutions. Waltman in its current condition is isolated. It's limited. What we have the ability to do with these two projects is change that with spending a significant amount of money, 600,000 to 800,000 for a bridge over 10 Mile Creek and extending Corporate Drive down to Waltman. That's going to allow traffic can go north up to Franklin, or it has alternative access points onto Meridian Road. By opening up Ruddy Drive, we will get some interconnection with the subdivision to the west. But even Ada County Highway District, in the memo written by Mindy Wallace on October 18th, she talks about the Linder ACHD and the Linder Road Overpass project. And she states, it is likely that the intersection at Waltman and Meridian Road will operate better than reported in the traffic impact studies once the stub streets to the adjacent neighborhoods are connected and Corporate Drive is extended to intersect with Waltman. So we're going to see a change in traffic patterns with that Linder overpass. We're going to see alternative routes and not just one point of access to Meridian Road from Waltman. These roadway improvements that we're proposing are not cheap. They're very expensive and time consuming. We're willing to take on that task. And we believe that it's going to help add alternative routes to this Waltman area. And this is recommended by ACHD. The level of service during the PM peak hour, it does go to a level of service F, with us or without us. And that's due to the fact that you have a single point urban interchange that was built by ITD when they did the Meridian interchange update. And that complicates the signal timing of the upstream and downstream intersections. Leah Kelsey's here from 6 Mile Engineering, and if you guys have questions for her, they designed the Meridian one-way couplet. They also did an analysis and provided 3 options for ACHD to allow us to extend some of those turn lanes and improve the capacity of the intersection at Meridian and Waltman. You also can't ignore the fact that the Tanner Creek project is already annexed. It's already zoned CG. Somebody could come in and buy it and put a Fred Meyer there tomorrow if they wanted to, with just a building permit. Because in the DA, that's what it's approved for, some big box, a hotel, retail, restaurants. Part of Hawkins property is already zoned CG. They said they could pull a permit basically for a big box user also. We're not going that route. We're downsizing. We're working together to solve the issues. And as far as the infrastructure, there's sewer out there, there's water out there. All of the police, the fire department, all their response times are significantly lower than what they average. So all of your facilities are available out there now. And I guess my thought is, if not now, then when? And if not these projects where we're willing to make all of these system improvements, then what? We have good projects. I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Becky. Commissioner Smith, I don't have a lot to add, but I would just say, Becky's correct. There's a 400,000 square foot shopping center entitled for the Tanner Creek site right now. We're proposing to build about 325,000 square feet. So it's significantly less than what is currently entitled, about 75,000 square feet less. I think that we are, we hired Leah to come up with some concept designs for the intersection. We are making as many improvements to the transportation network in this area as ACHD will let us. And I think, if we could do more, we absolutely would. And so that's all I really have to say. I think, it's a tricky situation, but this is an infill site. We're not extending services out into the hinterlands. We're filling in. That's going to capture trips. It's going to reduce travel times for many people. And overall, I think that's a very good thing for the community. Thank you.
I do have a quick question for one of you, but I'll ask real quick first. Do any of the other commissioners have any questions for applicants or any other individuals who were in the public testimony?
I do not.
All right. Mr. Commissioner Rivera, do you have any? She just came off mute.
I just have a quick question. In terms of maximizing the solutions as best pass to what ACHD allows you. So you've had these discussions with ACHD, and they also feel that this is the best implementation for for that street and the solutions, just to make it more accessible and free up as much as you can at the best capacity available.
Commissioner Rivera, that is correct. We've had extensive discussions with ACHD to try and increase capacity at the Waltman intersection, and they have staunchly rejected that option.
And these improvements, sorry, just follow up. And these improvements are there any different from the past? I think what was it, 2018, or the past submitted applications? Has anything changed? Or
Commissioner Rivera, we're actually bringing up the kind of the proposal that we brought to ACHD that Leah helped us design. Again, Leah's with 6 Mile Engineering, and she completed the original traffic engineering for this entire area. And so, I think that her firm, she and her firm know more about this area than anybody else. So, here's the proposed improvements. 2 northbound left turns from Meridian to Waltman, 2 eastbound right turns from Waltman to Meridian. We're actually increasing bike pedestrian facilities by pulling the bike lane off of Meridian Road, putting it in a multi-use pathway separated with an 8-foot buffer. And we're also allocating space for an additional southbound lane on Meridian Road. The idea would be ACHD could come and then construct in the future the remaining improvements to the intersection to allow it to then operate at an efficient level. So that's, this is what we proposed to ACHD, and they were not interested at this time. So we are moving forward with what we've got and appreciate them taking a look at it.
Could you,
Okay.
Commissioner Rivera, do you have any follow-up question?
No, that answers my question, Commissioner. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I do have a follow-up question. Could you speak a little bit to why ACHD or the reasoning they gave you, why they weren't interested in that? And yeah, if you'd like to come up from 6 Mile or to anyone.
Yeah, Commissioner Smith, if you don't mind, I'm going to have Leah come up and talk a little bit about her understanding of that, because it is a very technical response from ACHD.
And to be clear, my question is, I guess this might help inform kind of your response. My question is trying to get to the root of, is this something that there is some inherent, law of nature type thing that ACHD is citing as a reason for not, or is it just not at this time? Is there, what was kind of their reasoning around that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer your question. I'm Leah Kelsey with 6 Mile Engineering, 704 East United Heritage Court, Meridian. And so we received the letter from ACHD in response to our January technical memo, where we came up with 3 phased ideas or concepts to improve the intersection and level of service. And in their reply, which Sonia also touched on, and I believe Becky as well, they thought it would be detrimental. These improvements would be detrimental to the operation of the Spooey interchange. And they didn't provide any technical analysis. So I can't speak to the actual, or I can't quantify their qualms with the improvements. It was just kind of a broad statement, their feeling that it would have some impacts to the Spooey. And then again, they touched on Linder and how that would relieve some of the pressure on Meridian and improve the intersection operations, which I do agree with that. And if I can add something, I think that what Hawkins is proposing with their site plan doesn't preclude making these improvements in the future. They're setting their pathways back and allowing for additional right-of-way in Waltman. So at some time, if ACHD allows for these phased improvements, it will be possible.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I can add a little bit to the conversations too, because I had a conversation with ACHD staff this morning on the same topic, because Sonia and I didn't want to be too nearsighted on this topic either, because we know I go home this way every night. So I know exactly what all of these residents are dealing with. I'm stuck in traffic it takes me 40 minutes to go 2 miles home. So I understand that. And that's what ACHD's report says, is city, if you're going to approve something here, just be prepared to wait longer. And I think we all recognize that. Where ACHD is concerned is if these improvements or that extra stacking lane happens, we're queuing up more cars closer to the intersection. So in my conversations with ACHD is They would prefer to have the ability, if they keep that a single lane at the Waltman intersection, it would force cars potentially to go far deeper into Meridian and then turn left onto Corporate Drive or Central, and then circle back from behind those apartments on Corporate and drop down in. That's why it's so critical that we get Waltman widened and that Corporate Drive extension done with this project. And that's why ACHD said yes. And the city said, yes, we need this now, because that's the most critical piece right now, is to get that built and get all those roads extended and improved. So that was the discussion that I had with Mindy today, is like, even if we put it in the DA to say, do it at a later date, can you get behind this? And she said, no, we can't. We don't want to lose that functionality of the interchange, as the applicant testified to. So that's really their rationale, is they really feel like it will degrade how that SPUI, or at least that interchange functions, and they don't want to make it any worse. So it really, and that's why we even brought up to you in the staff report tonight, are you willing to wait for other things to happen before too much development occurs on the site? Example, Linda Road overpass. And we know that's a stretch with this particular application, because they do have some sort of entitlement on it. But we thought if the applicant was willing to work with us and hold off on some of that intensification, that we could possibly continue to work on solutions as this project continues to progress through the city's process.
Thank you. That actually answered my other question for you. The only question that I have remaining, I guess, is for Becky on, it's going to kind of bring up the issue we already talked about, that you mentioned, around phasing, et cetera. I think for me, the main concern right now, I tend to actually agree this probably is one of the better plans that we could have for this kind of area, but I really am concerned about the timing, and especially relative to that Linder overpass. I understand the concerns about whether it's necessary or not, or whether it might hinder. I know for the Hawkins side of things, it's a little bit more of an issue. Question for you then regarding occupancy of maybe the multifamily housing. Would that be possible to include in a DA, requirement of waiting to that Linder overpass? I guess what I'm trying to get at is anything we can do to just kind of soften things a little bit, maybe just notch down the impact until that Linder overpass is done, is completed. Are there any thought? I mean, during testimony, having had time to think over it, are there any kind of thoughts around how we can make that work?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Becky McKay. I did go through that condition the way staff, because they highlighted it in the staff report. And I said, if asked directly by the commission, would you agree to, not holding off on the multifamily component? And, their comment was that, they need to be able to make the project progress. Obviously, it's very heavy front loaded.
Mm-hmm.
And they said they would be reluctant to be saddled with that type of condition. Now, if it's occupancies and not like final, then that pushes that, when those units come online further out. Because realistically, if this is approved by the end of the year, we'll be in design for a year. Then the first phase comes online. Then the next year you start infrastructure on the second phase. And I mean, pretty soon before you know it, we're into 2026 and 2027. That's logistically, that's kind of how it works.
Yeah. But my main concern, to be clear, is again, regarding the necessity versus detriment, is, we talked about, what if market conditions shift, et cetera? What if for some reason Linder gets delayed? Or what if, things go great and you're ahead of build schedule. Considering all these other kind of these marginal cases, what my main concern is, and it seems like this might not be feasible with the retail side if you're kind of not amenable to that, but if maybe we can reach something on the residential side to, kind of just ensure that there's a little bit more peace of mind around, us not just, there's going to be some strain in the interim while Linder overpass is being constructed, and there's going to be some strain regardless until ACHD can kind of figure this out, whether that development's there or not. But how can we reduce the impacts where possible is kind of my concern. If we can have some peace of mind around, if things get delayed or ahead, behind schedule, et cetera, how can we make sure that there, that worst case scenario doesn't happen?
Yeah, I get it. And I guess I would be reluctant. I'm not authorized based on the question I asked them and the answer I received. I'm not authorized to make a commitment that, we're only going to build phase one until the Linder overpass is completed. I'm not authorized to say that. Obviously, the commission has to understand that when we're putting out millions of dollars in improvements, off-site and on-site improvements, and then we have to stop, then you lose momentum in a project for marketing and so forth. Logistically, do I think that everything's going to fall into place in the way that will match up with that overpass construction? I think logistically it will, but I can't make that commitment on part of my client because I was not authorized to do that, sir. But obviously it's the purview of the commission and the council and what they want to stipulate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any other commissioners have any additional questions?
No.
All right, hearing none, I would, can I get a motion to close the public hearing on items H-2021-0099? I think I got that. And H-2023-0048. Get a motion on that.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Can I, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. So discussion, I'll kind of start off.
Mr. Chairman, do two quick housekeeping items.
Yes.
With your permission. One is I wanted to, for the commission as a whole, the recommendation both from the city attorney's office and from the planning staff would be as you get to the point of making a decision or recommendation to the city council, we would recommend that the commission first take up the Hawkins Company project because that includes an amendment to the comprehensive plan that also incorporates Tanner Creek. So that would be logical for the commission to deal with that topic first as you take action and then do Tanner Creek second. So that would be the recommendation in terms of order. And I just wanted for the commission, but mostly for the public and the record, as we've stated earlier, Commissioner Lorcher has recused herself. So we have 3 commissioners acting on this item, and just for everybody's general, that we're on the same page. This requires a majority of those voting on the item. So a 2-1 vote would carry a motion. Obviously, a 3-0 vote would carry a motion as well. But stated differently, 2 affirmative votes is required to pass a motion.
Thank you, Kurt. Yeah, so like I said, I'll kind of lead off on just my thoughts. I think it's kind of been made clear throughout some of the discussion and questioning. I do tend to think that this is, given what these developers or future developers have the right to do, it seems like this is probably near as good as a development's going to get in this area. And you know, save for this sitting kind of dormant forever, I don't really know what this looks like in a way that looks better than this. My main concern, like I said, is really around timing. Yeah, I think we kind of worked through this, and I know we're going to start with Hawkins first, but I'll speak to Tanner Creek as well for this kind of portion. It seems like we kind of reached somewhat of an agreement on the stub driveway issue. The pedestrian amenities versus street connectivity issue, it seems like council can grant a waiver, and so that can be part of a recommendation if anyone wants to include that in the motion. My main thought at the moment regarding timing and regarding requests, especially for the Tanner Creek subdivision, is I believe, I just want to make sure. Yes, regarding Tanner Creek is the timing around Linder. My thought is I wouldn't mind seeing in a motion something that errs on the side of including that request, that phasing be there, and that could be a discussion point for council. The applicants can speak to the owners that they're representing to maybe kind of formulate whether they can find something to make that workable, or if they have a compelling argument before council. But I'd like to maybe see that personally, knowing that I can't make that motion. I'd like to maybe see that in there personally as a preference, but that's kind of where my head is at the moment. It seems like this, infill being what it is, especially right off of, a freeway entrance, it's tough. And it does seem though that this is a really good faith attempt to meet all those requirements that council made, or those recommendations council made on remand. And I think that this is a good faith effort by developers. And yeah, regardless not regardless, even considering some of the issues that this maybe creates or exacerbates in some cases, I think net, especially in the long-term future for Meridian, this seems to be a solid project that I would on net support. But any other commissioners have any thoughts, concerns, motions, etc.?
No, I actually agree with your comments.
Commissioner Rivera, do you have any thoughts on this, or anything? Would you like to express anything?
Yeah, it's a tough project at a tough location. I appreciate the developers putting in the effort to make it the best accommodations possible for the road and under the constraints of that location. Overall, I understand. I mean, I use that intersection day. I commute in the morning and in the evening. It is definitely congested. But I also appreciate the project going to your statements, Commissioner Smith, on for that location, that it's for the city of Meridian too, for that project to go there. It's a well thought out project. I wish it's a lot of information in 2 hours to digest. That's tough. I wish I had more from the ACHD side to have been able to review, but overall, I support the project, but yeah, that's all I have to say right now.
Chairman, One last clarifying comment. I just want to go back. You made you made a remark maybe about 3 or 4 minutes ago, and I've heard this from others as well. I just wanted to clarify. It is certainly sort of custom and protocol that the chairperson allows other commissioners to make motions and second and so forth. I just wanted to say from a legal perspective, there's no prohibition against the chairperson making a motion, or certainly no prohibition on voting on items for sure. But I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding that the chairperson is like legally prohibited from making a motion. That is not the case. It's more sort of custom and protocol. But when you have a small commission like we do tonight, that's something you could consider.
Thank you very much, Kurt. I appreciate that. Given that, and again, with the knowledge that we are going to be moving on the Hawkins application first, does anyone have any additional comments or a motion that they would like to throw out? All right, seeing none, I will try my hand. Let's see. So with Hawkins, sorry, let me make sure I have all my T's crossed and I's dotted. I'm sorry. So yeah, okay. Yes.
Excuse me, if I may, I'm not sure that on this application, I mentioned staff's request to modify DA provision A1I to require the extension of corporate drive to be constructed as required by ACHD. I know I did with Tanner Creek, and I'm not sure if I did with this application. So if you could also consider staff's request on that, please. Thank you.
Yeah, could you, sorry, did you say DA division A1I?
Yes. To require the extension of corporate to be constructed as required by ACHD. That was where staff had recommended a complete street section, and there's not enough right of way for that. Thank you.
All right, I'll try my hand and y'all can let me know if I missed anything. After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to the City Council of file number H-2021-0099 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of November 2nd, 2023, with the following modifications. To modify the DA section A1I to require an extension of corporate to be completed per ACHD requirements. Sorry, I have this mixed up, to grant a waiver for the street connectivity requirement under UDC, and then to, instead of requiring a stub driveway to the abutting property, allow a CDA with a requirement to allow the property owner to, or the future property owner to enter the Hawkins property in order to construct improvements.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Or can I have all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll be an aye as well. Yeah, so none opposed. The motion carries. All right. As for item number H-2023-0048, is there any additional discussion? Are there any motions, et cetera?
No discussion from me.
Alrighty. I will try my hand at motion number 2 here. After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend to the City Council a file number Point of clarification, is this 2023 or 2022? They have different numbers here. 2, okay. I move to recommend approval to City Council file number H-2022-0048 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of November 2nd, 2023, with the following modifications. To also modify the development agreement, section A1I, to require the extension of corporate to be completed per ACHD requirements, and to include a provision requiring that the lender overpass be completed prior to occupancy of the multifamily housing development.
I was so moved. I second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Or none opposed, I guess. That motion carries. It is at this time that I think we can grab Commissioner Lorcher to come back in, I believe.
Madam Clerk, would you mind asking Commissioner Orchard to join us?
And as a part of that, I'd like to, I don't know what the official word, but chairmanship is now yours again. Yeah.
Chair's back in the room. So are we going for one more motion?
I do believe we are.
All right, one more motion for the evening.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
Do I have a
Second.
second? Is that a second?
Yeah, I said second.
Okay, all those in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?